Hamilton says, "Mercedes is way ahead of Ferrari. There's just no comparison." If you want to see Toto Wolff's brutal reaction, this video is for you. Stick around until the end, because you won't believe what he said. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. The Formula One landscape has been engulfed in turmoil as the fallout from a bombshell leak continues to spiral far beyond initial expectations, engulfing not only Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, but shaking the foundations of relationships and reputations built over decades at the very highest levels of motorsport. What began as a seemingly routine evening in Monaco has now turned into one of the most incendiary scandals the sport has seen in recent memory, not only because of the biting content of Hamilton's private words, but because of the people involved, the context in which it occurred, and the devastating timing just ahead of a crucial stretch in the championship calendar. Hamilton, who has always walked the razor's edge between diplomacy and brutal honesty, may have unintentionally crossed the line into dangerous territory during that intimate gathering just a stone's throw from Monte Carlo's glittering harbor. The dinner was informal, a social affair more than a strategy meeting, attended by several notable figures from the racing world, including current and former executives, a handful of drivers past and present, and high-ranking personnel from at least 3 different teams. While the gathering wasn't sanctioned by any official body, its guest list ensured that conversations would be scrutinized, even when laughter flowed and wine glasses clinked under the soft lights of the terrace. Those who were present recall that Hamilton and Wolff quickly gravitated toward one another as the evening unfolded, sliding into one of the quieter corners of the venue, their voices lowered but unmistakably intense in tone. Wolff, ever the charismatic tactician, was said to be in high spirits, perhaps nostalgic for the era of utter dominance he had helped craft alongside Hamilton. According to multiple sources who later confirmed the accuracy of the now infamous quote, Hamilton's frustrations came pouring out not in a rant, but in a cold, reflective tone, perhaps sharpened by disappointment, perhaps emboldened by the presence of someone who had once empowered him to lead without obstruction. "Mercedes is just miles ahead," he reportedly said, swirling his wine glass as he gazed out toward the water. "Everything that matters: communication, planning, technical precision, trust. It's not even close. I spent years building something over there, something airtight. And now I'm here, constantly second-guessing, constantly patching holes." Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. And then came the remark that has shattered the calm inside Maranello. "At Mercedes, I was leading an empire. At Ferrari, I'm navigating chaos." The atmosphere at the table may have remained serene in the moment, but elsewhere, someone had heard it, someone who either recognized the explosive weight of what had just been said or saw an opportunity to leverage it. That someone, according to 2 separate team insiders, discreetly activated a recording app from their mobile phone, capturing roughly 90 seconds of conversation between Hamilton and Wolff, enough to frame the quote clearly, along with the subtle tones and laughter that followed. The source has not been publicly identified, but several paddock veterans believe it was a junior staffer from a rival team, who later forwarded the recording to a close contact in the media with a reputation for breaking sensitive stories. That journalist, an Italian motorsport veteran known for late-night exposés and whispered scoops, shared the story during an unscheduled appearance on a radio broadcast after midnight. Within 15 minutes, transcriptions were posted online. Within 2 hours, the internet had gone into meltdown. Hashtags surged. Forums caught fire. Fans were torn, some praising Hamilton for finally saying what many believe, others condemning him for what they called a betrayal of the Scuderia and everything it represents. Ferrari's top brass was not merely alarmed, they were infuriated. Frédéric Vasseur, already under intense pressure due to the team's performance inconsistencies and recent PR missteps, reportedly exploded upon hearing the quote, demanding immediate verification and an internal sweep of who could have leaked such information. The mood inside Ferrari's command center shifted overnight. What had been a team trying to rebuild harmony after several turbulent race weekends now became a battleground of suspicion, paranoia, and damage control. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. Leclerc, who had been simmering with quiet frustration for weeks, reportedly took the leak as the final straw. People close to him say he felt personally insulted, not just by the words themselves, but by the fact that Hamilton had voiced them to his old boss, rather than confronting the issues within the team directly. He is said to have confronted Vasseur the following morning in what one team insider described as a fiercely emotional conversation, bordering on ultimatums. Hamilton, meanwhile, arrived at the paddock the next day with his usual swagger, but those who know him well described a subtle change in his demeanor, more guarded, more measured, but absolutely unapologetic. When approached by the media, he deflected questions with his trademark calm, neither confirming nor denying the quote, instead choosing to say only that things said in private shouldn't define relationships built in public. Behind the scenes, however, he was reportedly livid, not at the leak itself, but at the reaction from Ferrari's hierarchy, who he felt were more concerned about headlines than the deeper truth behind his words. The tension escalated further when Toto Wolff, perhaps unintentionally fanning the flames, offered a cryptic comment during a Friday press briefing. "Sometimes the truth has sharp edges," he said, when asked about the dinner. "But if you've built something that works, and you step into something that doesn't, it's natural to feel the difference." Mercedes, though officially neutral in the matter, has quietly enjoyed the chaos unfolding at their rivals' expense. The paddock has not stopped buzzing. Red Bull, ever the opportunists, have been circulating internal briefings about potential destabilization within Ferrari's driver lineup. Aston Martin is rumored to be monitoring the situation closely, considering whether Leclerc might be tempted into early negotiations. Even McLaren's Lando Norris was spotted chatting with Vasseur in a manner that raised more than a few eyebrows. Sponsors are equally rattled. Puma executives reportedly held a tense video conference with Ferrari's marketing team to assess the fallout. Shell has demanded reassurances that internal team culture won't spill over into future broadcasts or documentaries. Santander, which had recently renewed its branding partnership with Ferrari, is said to be drafting a series of crisis-comm scenarios should the leak become further weaponized by rivals. The FIA has not yet issued a formal statement, but behind closed doors, there is concern about privacy breaches, team espionage, and the broader implications of conversations being secretly recorded in an era where every sentence can become a PR firestorm. There is growing momentum toward establishing stricter codes of conduct, not only for radio transmissions, but for private events where team personnel may be present. To some within the paddock, the very essence of competition has been tainted, not by the remark itself, but by how effortlessly it was intercepted, weaponized, and hurled into the media hurricane. In their eyes, the sanctity of trust inside Formula One's most iconic garage has been fractured like never before. Behind the closed doors of Ferrari, it's not just tension, it's open insurrection. What once passed as internal disagreements has morphed into a full-scale ideological clash. Trust has not eroded, it has completely collapsed. Departments are splitting along ideological lines. Key personnel are actively seeking reassignment to other divisions or even different teams, desperate to distance themselves from the political powder keg about to explode. The drivers? Their partnership has deteriorated from cautious coexistence into outright animosity. Strategic meetings are icy. Conversations are rehearsed, if not entirely avoided. Collaborations, which once buzzed with promise and bold innovation, are now buried beneath skepticism, passive aggression, and a lingering sense of betrayal. The dream that once united Ferrari's homegrown prodigy and Formula One's most illustrious champion has mutated into a slow, incendiary meltdown that threatens to scorch the Scuderia from within. Stay subscribed, because no one else is revealing the unfiltered layers behind F1's most explosive storylines. As for Lewis Hamilton, he's not stepping back, he's recalibrating with the precision of a surgeon. Every move is now being dissected in granular detail, from his paddock demeanor to offhand glances during team briefings. The million-dollar question: will he use this turmoil to ignite structural reform within Ferrari? Will he consolidate his influence and seize control of the narrative? Or is he already exploring escape routes, quietly mapping exit strategies should the walls continue closing in? One thing's certain, he's lit a fuse. And somewhere deep inside the heartbeat of Maranello, the countdown has already begun. The chaos detonated the instant the controversial quote, Hamilton's damning critique, began making rounds on internal Ferrari servers. This wasn't a vague rumor or a misquoted line. It was precise, explicit, and it hit like a missile. Encrypted alerts surged through executive channels. Panic rippled across Ferrari's leadership structure. Senior personnel bombarded Frédéric Vasseur's private line within minutes. The damage wasn't confined to social media. It had detonated at the very core of the team's command structure. From top-tier aerodynamicists to first-year data interns, staff were stunned as the same scathing words, screenshotted, rephrased, memed, flooded their devices. Hamilton, reportedly, had questioned the team's operational DNA, mocked its methods, and drew unflattering comparisons to his former powerhouse team Mercedes. The leak came just hours after a Grand Prix disaster filled with botched strategies, missed radio calls, and a near on-track incident between teammates. For Frederick Vasseur, this was a nuclear-level breach. Insiders say the Ferrari boss didn't sleep a minute. Well into the early hours, he was seen pacing through HQ, replaying audio, dissecting transcripts, and trying to make sense of how a confidential moment had metastasized into the most talked-about scandal in motorsport. For a man renowned for level-headedness and cold, strategic logic, this wasn't just an operational failure, it was personal. A betrayal at the deepest level. By dawn, Hamilton had been urgently summoned to Maranello. No entourage. No media advisors. No attorneys. Just him, Vasseur, and a locked conference room that had been stripped of distractions. No coffee, no cordiality. The only object on the otherwise bare table? A crisp, printed copy of the offending quote, circled in blood-red ink like a courtroom exhibit. Vasseur didn't sit. He stood behind his chair, spine rigid, expression carved from stone. And then, with a theatrical slap that sliced the air, he dropped the page onto the desk. The room echoed. "You care to explain this?" he asked, voice low, but trembling with fury. Hamilton didn't blink. Didn't reach for the paper. He knew what it said. He exhaled, leaned forward, and placed both palms on the table. "I said it," he admitted, calm but firm. "But you're missing the full picture. It wasn't an attack, it was context. You asked for transparency. I gave it. We're going through transition, evolution, cultural shift. That's what I was speaking to." But Vasseur wasn't buying it. According to a team official positioned near the hallway, his response was thunderous, nothing like his usual calm. "Don't pretend this was misinterpreted," he snapped. "You didn't just point at systems, you trashed the people. You called us outdated. Called our methods ancient. You disrespected every soul in this building who sweat 16 hours a day under that red crest. And you've barely even warmed the seat." Hamilton's voice dropped, firm but unwavering. "I didn't plan for this to go public," he said. "But I won't sugarcoat reality either. We've got world-class talent. But our structure? It's sluggish. It's reactive. That's not how you win titles. I've lived in a system that delivers. I want to help build one here. But if you want someone who just plays along, nods, and stays quiet, I'm not your guy." Silence. Not just silence, a vacuum. The kind that comes before tectonic shifts. Back at the factory, the aftershocks were instantaneous. Morale, which had already been bleeding from months of failure and negative press, suffered another crushing blow. Veteran mechanics, once proud torchbearers of Ferrari's legacy, were left speechless. Engineers who had been lured from rivals specifically to work with Hamilton felt blindsided, some even betrayed. An insider from Ferrari's race ops center painted the mood in one word: devastated. A power unit engineer, visibly shaken, confided, "We gave him everything, our respect, our secrets, our time. Now we're questioning if he ever truly believed in us." Inside the strategy division, the same nerve center blamed for a string of race day disasters, a fog of paranoia settled. Conversations stopped mid-sentence when others walked in. Internal group chats went radio silent. Trust had imploded. No one knew where the leak came from, or worse, why it was leaked. Had Hamilton been recorded in a debrief? Had a team member turned informant? Was this sabotage, or a cry for help? And Charles Leclerc? For him, this was the final rupture. Their alliance had always been tentative. Outwardly respectful, sure. But underneath? Leclerc had struggled with the gravitational pull Hamilton brought. The headlines, the corporate clout, the attention. As Ferrari's long-anointed crown jewel, he had watched his spotlight dim, his influence fade. And now, that same seven-time champion was accusing the team, his team, of dysfunction from within. Multiple eyewitnesses at the Imola motorhome report that Leclerc confronted Hamilton directly. No intermediaries, no PR filters. Behind a closed door, their voices, normally restrained, rose sharply. Leclerc, fueled by frustration and disbelief, reportedly lashed out. "You think you're saving us, but you're tearing us apart." And so the Scuderia Ferrari, the soul of Formula One, is in turmoil. Not because of one quote, but because that quote revealed everything. And as the world watches with bated breath, one thing is clear: the Red Empire is cracking from within. That fleeting moment, no longer than a handful of seconds, has proven to be far more consequential than anyone anticipated. What appeared at first to be a subtle disagreement, just another spark in the high-pressure world of Formula One, has rapidly evolved into a full-fledged rupture between two titanic drivers. The aftermath hasn't just lingered, it's metastasized, infecting the internal climate of the team like a virus of mistrust and emotional detachment. What was once described in press releases as a harmonious partnership built on mutual respect has deteriorated into a brittle corporate Cold War. The facade of unity, so carefully curated during the early days of the season with photo shoots, rehearsed interviews, and double-driver promo reels, has completely disintegrated. Now Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc reportedly interact only when absolutely required, and even then, only under the formal oversight of team principal Frederic Vasseur, whose demeanor in these tense briefings is said to be less of a leader and more of a mediator caught between two diverging worlds. Communication between the drivers has regressed to what one insider called an emotionless relay of information. Even radio exchanges, which are usually monitored by both sides for team strategy purposes, have become points of contention. Engineers are increasingly cautious about how messages are phrased, wary of accidentally conveying favoritism. Meetings that once involved laughter, shared ideas, and unified goals are now starkly clinical. Words are measured. Eye contact is rare. Even casual interactions in the paddock, those little visual cues fans love to analyze, have become telling through their absence. No nods, no smiles, no passing remarks. It's as if they exist in separate realities, forced to operate in the same confined space by circumstance, but emotionally and professionally miles apart. This growing chasm hasn't gone unnoticed outside the red walls of Maranello. Over in Brackley, the headquarters of Mercedes-AMG Petronas, the reaction has been muted in public but reportedly quite animated behind closed doors. While Toto Wolff has refused to comment on the record, those within Mercedes describe him as subtly satisfied with the unfolding drama. During one internal strategy session, as recounted by someone in the room, Wolff reportedly leaned back in his chair, glanced at a slide showing Ferrari's recent race results and internal communications leak, and remarked with a smirk, "You may not always agree with Lewis, but he's never been wrong about what elite structure feels like." That sentence, simple as it was, spread like wildfire among the engineering staff. It wasn't just a comment, it was a reaffirmation of culture. It reminded everyone at Mercedes why they had been successful, why the Hamilton era had worked. Why structure, clarity, and communication weren't just philosophies, they were lifelines. Rumors began swirling immediately. According to multiple whispers across the paddock, Wolff followed that meeting by reaching out to Hamilton personally via text, reportedly urging him to keep asking the hard questions and don't let them gaslight you into silence. That message, though unofficial and unseen by the public, has been interpreted by many insiders as a subtle but deliberate olive branch. The door, it seems, may not be entirely closed. The possibility, however remote, that Hamilton could one day return to Mercedes isn't just a fan fantasy anymore. It's a shadow narrative, slowly gaining traction in the halls of speculation. The idea that Ferrari, after all their ceremony and spectacle, could lose Hamilton back to the very empire they once sought to conquer with him. It's the kind of dramatic irony even Hollywood couldn't script. Meanwhile, the wider F1 community is boiling with reaction. Every outlet, every podcast, every fan account on social media has taken a side. Some defend Hamilton with unwavering loyalty, saying he's merely revealing uncomfortable truths about a legendary team too trapped by its own mythology to evolve. They see him not as arrogant, but as a realist, someone trying to lift the veil and drag Ferrari into the present with the kind of winning culture he helped build at Mercedes. Others are far less sympathetic. They accuse him of hubris, of poisoning team unity, of airing grievances that should have stayed behind the scenes. They point to his carefully worded comparisons in press conferences as veiled shots, calculated jabs that erode trust, however subtle they might seem. The debate has grown so intense that even neutral fans have been pulled into the crossfire. Social media is ablaze with threads analyzing tone, posture, and subtext. Video montages showing the evolution of the Hamilton-Leclerc relationship, from hopeful smiles in pre-season testing to frosty stares after qualifying, are drawing millions of views. Commentators on race broadcasts are now devoting entire segments to body language. Every pause, every sigh, every shrugged shoulder. Everything is content. Everything is weaponized. Sponsors, who usually prefer to hover above the fray, are beginning to sweat. One senior executive representing a longtime Ferrari partner was reportedly furious after the internal conflict leaked online and sparked a multi-day trend on Twitter. That sponsor contacted Ferrari's global marketing team demanding immediate reassurance that the situation was under control and not escalating toward reputational instability. Another corporate partner, whose logo is printed across both driver suits and multiple parts of the SF25 chassis, is said to have paused its upcoming digital campaign after seeing fan engagement on the leak spiral into toxicity. The brand's media agency is now re-evaluating its Ferrari-facing assets, and there's talk of reallocating budget to avoid being caught in a political minefield. Back at Ferrari HQ, the pressure is crushing. Team morale is dipping, and for the first time, even the support staff are beginning to feel the tremors. Internally, there are growing fears that the situation could spiral beyond what any amount of PR can fix. Several team members have reportedly requested transfers to other departments. Some senior personnel have become increasingly reclusive, skipping media-facing duties and canceling public appearances. Technical meetings have grown longer but less productive, as engineers now have to navigate a minefield of sensitivities while attempting to improve performance. Vasseur, who was once praised for his calm and clarity, now appears strained in every media clip. His voice wavers. His answers have grown rehearsed. He no longer speaks like a man in control. He speaks like a man managing a storm he didn't anticipate and might not survive. There's also the matter of timing. This leak, this internal fracture, this slow public unraveling, has arrived just as Ferrari is facing its most critical development window of the season. The European leg is approaching. Upgrades are due. Points are on the line. And instead of focusing on aerodynamics, simulations, and performance metrics, the team is spending its time navigating interpersonal diplomacy and media perception. Every hour spent crafting statements and calming sponsors is an hour lost on the racetrack. Every briefing distorted by tension is a step backward in competitiveness. Formula One doesn't wait for drama to resolve, it punishes it. And yet, the story isn't over. Not by a long shot. There's still time for redemption. There's still a possibility that Ferrari finds a way to unify, recalibrate, and rise above. But with every race, every qualifying lap, every double-stack pit stop, the world is watching closer. The scrutiny isn't just intense, it's relentless. Cameras zoom in on Hamilton and Leclerc more than anyone else. Every time they pass each other on track, the commentary box holds its breath. Every time they walk through the paddock, photos go viral in seconds. The pressure isn't coming, it's here. And it's growing. What happens next won't just define this season. It may redefine the careers of both drivers. It may reshape the legacy of the most historic team in motorsport. And it may determine whether Ferrari, in its pursuit of greatness, finally learns how to manage greatness. Or loses it, publicly, spectacularly, and permanently. In an increasingly desperate bid to regain control of a narrative spiraling out of their hands, Ferrari's public relations division has begun working overtime behind closed doors. Insiders reveal that a carefully worded joint statement is being drafted, a diplomatic gesture intended to present a united front, to paint a picture of solidarity between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc despite what every camera, microphone, and pit lane whisper suggests. The message is clear: reaffirm the drivers' shared commitment to the team, emphasize harmony, downplay the rift. But the reality behind the scenes tells a far different story, one filled with resistance, tension, and quiet rebellion. Hamilton, ever the strategist both on and off the track, has reportedly refused to sign the statement in its current form. His reason? Words without action are meaningless. Platitudes don't win championships. Appearances don't fix dysfunction. And with that one refusal, speculation has exploded across the paddock, in newsrooms, on fan forums, and through every channel where the pulse of Formula One is measured. Because Hamilton's reluctance to endorse Ferrari's curated narrative doesn't just suggest skepticism, it hints at a deeper fracture. One that's not just about setups or strategy, but about trust, leadership, and whether Hamilton still believes this team is capable of delivering him the tools he needs to finish his career the way he intends, on top. At the heart of this growing storm are whispers, persistent, multiplying, difficult to dismiss. Unconfirmed reports suggest Hamilton has already made internal moves, requesting adjustments to his engineering personnel. He's allegedly asked for more autonomy when it comes to race weekend setups and direct access to raw performance data without filtering it through the team's existing technical chain of command. That request, while not unprecedented in F1's power dynamics, hits differently at Ferrari, a team known for its rigid hierarchy, deep-rooted traditions, and historically centralized control. For generations, Ferrari has functioned as an institution, not a sandbox for driver experimentation. It's a team where change moves slowly, and where internal innovation often meets institutional resistance. Hamilton's push for a more tailored driver-led approach is being interpreted by many not as a slight, but as a warning. A warning that he's no longer content with tradition for tradition's sake. That he will not conform to outdated systems just to keep the peace. That he expects the team to evolve with him, or risk being left behind. And for Ferrari, this represents a cultural earthquake. For years, they positioned themselves as a team first, with drivers expected to fit into the framework, not reshape it. Now, for the first time in decades, they face a champion unwilling to play that game, and the implications are seismic. Internally, tensions have escalated. Meetings once filled with technical discussion now devolve into debates over access, decision-making power, and communication flow. Some engineers remain loyal to Leclerc, whose quiet but assertive style has endeared him to Ferrari's traditionalists. Others are beginning to gravitate toward Hamilton, captivated by his relentless pursuit of improvement, his data obsession, and his uncompromising standards. The garage, once a place of synchronized effort, is slowly fracturing into ideological camps. Collaboration is being replaced by cautious cooperation. Data sharing, always a sensitive topic between teammates, is now being handled with unprecedented levels of scrutiny, with each side quietly monitoring who receives what and when. The paddock, ever thirsty for drama, has been quick to latch onto the narrative. Every interaction between the two drivers is under a microscope. During Friday practice, analysts will watch like hawks to see if telemetry is exchanged freely or withheld behind closed laptops. During qualifying briefings, body language experts will be dissecting posture and tone. Even the order in which drivers exit the garage will be interpreted as a signal of internal politics. There is no such thing as a neutral moment anymore. Everything means something. Every word, every look, every pause. As for the fans, they're more engaged than ever. Social media feeds are on fire, flooded with contrasting opinions. Some view Hamilton's stance as the principled stand of a legend unwilling to compromise on excellence. Others see it as a disruptive force, one that risks destabilizing the very foundations of a team already under pressure. The split isn't just between Hamilton and Leclerc, it's among the millions watching around the world, each drawing lines in the sand, each defending their chosen hero with unwavering fervor. It's no longer just about which driver is faster. It's about what they represent. Tradition versus evolution. Loyalty versus transformation. Silence versus defiance. And through it all, Ferrari's leadership remains trapped. Torn between preserving Leclerc's place as the future of the team and respecting the gravitational force that Hamilton brings with him. Every decision is now a gamble. Support one too publicly, and you risk alienating the other. Say nothing, and the silence becomes deafening. But make no mistake, inaction is also a choice, and one with its own consequences. The impact of Hamilton's subtle but deliberate criticisms, especially when juxtaposed with his nostalgic praise for his time at Mercedes, is beginning to take a toll. His post-race comments may have been measured, but they struck like daggers. Complimenting the structure and clarity he once enjoyed under Toto Wolff, even hinting at the professionalism and unity he left behind, sent ripples through Maranello. Whether intentional or not, those words hit Ferrari where it hurts most, in the pride. This isn't just about dissatisfaction. It's about comparison. And when a driver of Hamilton's caliber begins looking back with longing instead of looking forward with confidence, alarm bells start ringing. Ferrari, of course, remains an empire. A name that echoes through motorsport history like thunder. But empires fall, not from a single blow, but from the accumulation of small strategic failures. A slow bleed of credibility. A growing loss of authority. A champion losing faith, one unsent statement at a time. The smoke now hovers across the paddock like a fog refusing to lift. Everyone senses it. The unspoken reality. The unacknowledged truth. The question no one at Ferrari dares to answer, but everyone is asking in hushed conversations, in midnight meetings, in private text threads across team boundaries. Can this team still hold onto a man who knows what greatness looks like, feels like, and refuses to settle for anything less? What happens next could define the season. It could define the final chapter of Hamilton's career. It could alter Ferrari's trajectory for years to come. Because this isn't just a power struggle between teammates. It's not even just a crisis of leadership. It's a referendum on what Ferrari wants to be, and whether they're brave enough to evolve, or destined to cling to the past until it breaks them apart.